We've all heard Britain being called a nation of shopkeepers. Daniel's shaking his head, but I'm going to move on from net zero because there's other things going on. Right, we've all been called, haven't we, a nation of shopkeepers, but we're wondering now, are we basically a nation of shoplifters? According to official statistics, shoplifting has increased by 21%, and attacks on shopkeepers has also risen dramatically. I think a lot of people are inadvertent shoplifters. I think what people do...
Didn't you admit before on a programme that you shoplifted in the past? Did I imagine that?
In life, you've got to be sensible. And I don't think it's sensible to admit to being a criminal live on television. So I will say no comment to that one.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I think there's a lot of people that perhaps look at a self-checkout and think to themselves, I'm not going to scan anything on there, and guess what? It'll serve the shop, supermarket right. It's done away with all of its checkout girls, people like me. So if you want me to serve myself, well, you can't really grumble if you don't get your entire amount through the till.
I don't think there's some people like that. Shoplifting. That is shoplifting.
I think there's a lot of people out there.
I mean, inadvertent would be
you inadvertently put an orange through as a grapefruit.
Yeah, exactly. You put an orange through as a grapefruit, or
because
something.
a grapefruit. No, you do it the other way around. You'd put your grapefruit through as an orange.
Yeah,
because
the colours look the same. But
should we move it on because Michelle's looking slightly uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'm looking a bit shifty sitting here. If you're listening,
what I know Michelle hasn't done, something that I see happening a lot now, and this because this shoplifting does worry me. But something else that's happening is that a whole load of people nowadays, of course, have deliveries from Amazon and other firms delivered to their door. They're not at home. They have their little boxes, they have their little hidden places where they tell the driver to leave the stuff. Yeah. There are people who are professionally going around now, going down to basements, going into flats and stealing stuff that's been left out just to see what it is, see if it's got any value for them, take it off and sell it. And it's become a whole industry, and I don't see that the police are going to be able to do anything about it because you'd have to be everywhere to stop.
And they've got better things to do.
And they've got better things to do. So I don't know what the solution to that is. At least with shoplifting, the big shops at least can install cameras. They can have checkout. When you take your orange and your grapefruit out and the machine goes flash, flash, or whatever, and buzz. It never has to me, so I assume it does.
And they have cameras at self-checkouts now,
and they have cameras. Oh, yes, they have cameras at have had for years. They have cameras at checkout so they can see your hands, see what you're doing with all the flippity-flop there in front of you, and so on. So they can look after themselves to some extent. But I'm worried about ordinary people who are having stuff nicked from them the whole time, people trying to get into blocks of flats, see what's been left there by the drivers.
Shoplifting costs the British economy £4.27 billion, apparently. That's more than Germany, France, the Netherlands, Spain, Italy and Sweden. Only retailers in the United States, apparently, face more theft. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shocking statistic.
Trying to get me arrested.
It's a shocking statistic, and I think the issue here is that I feel, and statistics suggest it, that it's on the rise. The reality that we all know is if you are somebody on, relatively low wages working as security in, for example, Sainsbury's, right, you're going to think twice about risking your well-being to tackle somebody for shoplifting, right? So it is a huge cost. Generally, I think if it's on the rise, it's part of the cost of living crisis. People are harder up. They're probably going to commit more crime as a result. Well, hang on. But the other thing is, overall, crime is on the rise, and there is, I detect, less respect around for law and order than there used to be, and this is part of the problem. But low-paid security guards in an increasingly violent society are not going to risk their lives to tackle shoplifters.
That isn't how it works.
But it is. You can see that all around the place.
It isn't how it works in large organisations. So you have staff on London Underground, for example, who look after the stations. You see them there. But they're not the people who tackle fare dodgers, for example. There are dedicated officers, revenue protection officers, dressed in ordinary clothes who work in pairs, who do tackle fare dodgers and are prepared and trained to take people on. I don't mean to rugby tackle them. They're not encouraged to get into fights, but to confront them and be firm with them. And you have the same sort of thing in shops. You think it's the poor security guard whose job it is. It isn't. There are people, they organise this in a much, much more focused way. Your ordinary security guard is not the one who will be going and tackling the shoplifter if the buzzer goes off. The big shops can generally look after themselves. I worry about the small shops, and I worry about the attacks on small shopkeepers. They're very often on small shopkeepers because they haven't got the same resources and they're not as professional at doing it as the big shops are, despite what Kevin thinks they're a bunch of amateurs. They're not. They're very professional about it. They know what they're doing. And I worry about them, and I worry about people getting stuff nicked at home the whole time and break-ins from outside their homes or in their little alcoves and whatever. Hide it behind put it behind the flower pot. Well,
lots of your responses at home are making me chuckle. I do see all your emails that you send to me, and I have to be sensible that I can't read certain things out, especially before the watershed. You know, I think that as a nation, people are becoming more violent. It feels like that to me anyway. And I also think that social media is playing a big part in this, because you do seem to see these videos now of these kids and they don't care. They will just walk into a shop in front of everyone. They'll fill their boots, they'll fill their pockets, and they will just wander out knowing that they're probably not going to get stopped. And a lot of shoplifters, I know a little bit too much about this subject, a lot of shoplifters, of course, they do steal to order, don't they?
Yes, things like alcohol, you know, they are in larger stores, that does happen. And I don't know where Lord Daniel Moylan does his weekly shop, but I can assure him that in many, many supermarkets, large and small, around the country, it does fall to the security staff as the first port of call to tackle shoplifters.
Well, I wouldn't know myself, because I've never actually been stopped for shoplifting, Kevin, and you'd have maybe more experience than me in this.
I suspect neither of you have.
I can assure you that Sainsbury's and people like that have got a very much more professional operation than you think.
Sheila says, Michelle, shoplifting causes a price rise in goods, which ultimately affects us all. It is a crime and it needs to be stopped.
Correct.
I completely agree with you. It is a crime and it does need to be stopped. But this country, when it comes to law and order, is in an absolute mess. So when it comes to the priorities of the police, do you think it is stuff like stopping shoplifters that should get the priority when you've got so many other people seemingly getting away with quite serious crimes these days? I don't know. You give me your thoughts on all of that.